Frank Morrison's hands shook as he sat in the dim illumination of Murphy's saloon, a half-warm beer before him. 67 years on this planet had taught Frank Morrison more cruelty than most men could endure, but nothing could prepare him for what he was about to see on that hot Tuesday afternoon in Copper Ridge. The air within the saloon hung thick with tobacco smoke and perspiration. Frank sipped his weekly tipple, attempting to erase the devastation his life had devolved into. The drought had almost left his land barren, his cattle perishing, and his debts stacked like thunderclouds at the horizon's edge. Then the bat-wing doors swung open. Jake Wheeler lurched in, pulling a young girl with him. She couldn't have been more than 14. Her dress clung to her like rags of fabric, ripped and dirty. Frank's breath caught. He saw it right away: starvation, abuse, and a terror too great for a child to bear. The pale face of the girl was gaunt, her eyes wide with silent fear. Wheeler smelled of sweat and cheap bourbon. He lurched up to the bar, mumbling, "Murphy, I got something to trade. That fine whiskey you got locked away. I want it." The saloon became ominously quiet. With a push, Wheeler thrust the girl forward like a slab of meat. "My daughter, Sarah. She's young, untainted. Worth at least 3 bottles. There was enough silence in the room to choke on. Even the hardiest cowboys shifted uncomfortably. Murphy, the saloon keeper, looked at Wheeler like he was something infected. "Get out, Jake," he said icily. "I have a saloon, not a. I won't be a party to this." But Wheeler wasn't done. Desperation clung to every word. "Someone here's got to want her," he growled. "I've got debts. She's all I've got left." He took Sarah's arm. She whimpered, cowering like a whipped dog. Her eyes flitted about, looking for any place to escape. Frank felt something shatter deep in the middle of his chest. He hadn't experienced this sort of fury in years, not since the war, not since the time he lost someone he couldn't keep safe. His wife's voice echoed on in memory. "Some things are worth more than money, Frank. Or pride." He rose. The chair legs rasped on the wooden floor, shattering the quiet like a gunshot. All eyes followed as Frank approached Wheeler, each step slow and measured, his boots ringing against the boards. Sarah gazed up at him, her eyes searching, weary. "How much?" Frank inquired, his voice a parched whisper, but edgy enough to slice through the air. Wheeler smiled, a demon. 3 bottles. Or $20. Cash. Frank dug into his vest and pulled out the remaining of his savings. His hands shook. He placed the money on the bar. But then he felt it, something black burning in the eyes of the men staring. And Wheeler wasn't finished with his pushing. "Deal," Wheeler spat, grabbing the bills. "But I want her out. Today. I don't want to see her around here no more." He leaned forward, his whiskey-scented breath sour. "And you'd best keep her on her toes. She's been a real challenge lately. Needs a firm hand." Frank's jaw clenched. Sarah was still, terrified and incredulous. She did not appear to grasp the fact that her life had been bartered for something less than the value of a horse. Her eyes clung to Frank's face, hoping against hope for some clue, any clue, to the nature of the man. "Oh, come on, child," Frank said gently, holding out his arm. She drew back, standing against the bar in fright. That involuntary jerk told Frank more than any words ever might. Murphy observed with manifest discomfort. "Frank, you okay about this? Maybe the sheriff should know about it, or Reverend Patterson." Frank shook his head. "There ain't no law against what just occurred. She's his daughter. His business." The words scalded in his throat. On paper, Wheeler had done no wrong. In practice, he'd done something monstrous. But this was the frontier, and on the frontier, fathers owned their children. Wheeler stuffed the money into his pocket and strode away without a second look. "She's your problem now, Morrison. Don't come crying to me when she runs off or mouths off." The door creaked shut behind him. Frank got down next to Sarah, not wanting to move too fast. She winced once more, her hands trembling. "I know you're frightened," he told her, "and I know you don't trust me, but I ain't going to hurt you." Her words were a mere whisper. "What? What are you going to do to me?" Frank had no time to respond when the saloon doors crashed open once more. 3 men strode in, their gazes homing in on Sarah with deadly intent. Frank knew them at once, members of Dutch Morgan's gang. Men who used violence, men who employed ruthlessness. The largest of the 3, a scar-faced giant named Cobb, smiled wide enough to display a set of shattered teeth. "Looks like we came in late for the performance," he drawled. His eyes wandered over Sarah in a manner that made Frank's flesh crawl. "Tell you what, old man," Cobb said. "I'll pay you $30 for the girl. That's twice what you paid for her." Frank placed himself between Sarah and Cobb, hand going instinctively to his Colt. "She's not on the market." Cobb chuckled, a low, menacing sound. "Everything's on the market in Copper Ridge, Morrison. Question is, you want this easy or bloody?" The other customers began to fade away, catching on to what was happening. Murphy slipped behind the bar, going for the shotgun he kept concealed. Sarah clutched Frank's coat in both hands, her tiny body shuddering. Frank felt the burden of every decision that had led him to this moment. He'd wanted to rescue her, but now he'd endangered both their lives. And then, as Cobb moved closer, Sarah whispered something that made the entire room grow cold. "Please, don't let them take me," she begged, her voice shaking. "They're the ones who hurt my sister, before she disappeared." Frank went still. He'd heard rumors, girls disappearing from homesteads, never to be seen again. Rumors, until now. But fear in Sarah's eyes was not rumor. It was reality. Cobb's smile vanished. "Girl's got an imagination," he sneered. "Maybe she needs to know when to zip it." He cracked his knuckles. "Last offer, old man. Surrender her or lose teeth." Frank's mind was racing. 3 guns against 1 weary rancher and a cowering girl. The odds were impossible, but he'd fought impossible fights before, and something in the way Sarah clung to him made him remember why he never ran. "Murphy," Frank asked without turning, "still got that back door through the kitchen?" "Frank, don't do this," Murphy whispered. "Too late," Frank told him. Then, with sudden rage, he swept Sarah up into his arms. "Run!" The room erupted into a frenzy. Cobb bellowed, toppling tables as he and his men charged forward. Frank burst through the kitchen door, his legs aflame, Sarah holding him close. Gunfire cracked the quiet, wood splintered to their rear. Frank flung open the back door, staggering out into the alley behind the saloon. His horse, Dusty, was standing no more than 20 yards away, but it could have been a mile. "Can you ride?" Frank gasped. Sarah nodded. Another shot split the air. A bullet whizzed by Frank's ear. Dusty danced and snorted as Frank lifted Sarah into the saddle, his own hands shaking with haste. Behind them, Cobb burst through the saloon's back door, revolver leveled. "You can't hide from Dutch for all eternity, Morrison." "We know where you live." Frank's gut fell. Dutch Morgan's gang will head right to his ranch, isolated, defendable, and a perfect trap. The gelding sprang forward, hoofbeats thundered as scrub and foothills blurred past. Sarah turned to yell above the wind. "Mister, there's something else about why they need me." Her words hit Frank with more force than any bullet. "My sister Emma worked nights at the Copper Ridge Hotel, cleaning rooms," she yelled. "She discovered papers in Dutch Morgan's room, spurious silver mine claims. She mentioned it to me, and the next day they took her." So Wheeler hadn't just sold his daughter for whiskey. He'd attempted to kill a witness to Dutch's scam. Frank shivered. Rescuing Sarah meant confronting the most dangerous man in 3 territories. They arrived at the ranch at sundown, long shadows stripping the cracked earth. Frank swung down, then lowered Sarah to the ground. Inside, quick! Exhaustion overtook her. She stumbled on the porch, flinching when he steadied her. Within the cabin, Frank lit a single lantern, checked his Winchester, and studied the girl in the dim glow. Behind the grime, he saw keen intelligence and a stubborn jaw that reminded him painfully of his late daughter, Lucy. "Those men will come tonight," he said, loading cartridges. "This place won't hold against a full gang. We'll need wits more than walls." "Why assist me?" Sarah's voice was tiny but even. "You may turn me over and have done?" Frank hesitated. Memories of Lucy, ailing, dying in his arms, flashed in his mind. "Every now and again, a fellow gets a second chance," he replied softly. "Sometimes it comes dressed in a tattered dress and scared eyes." For a moment, Sarah just stared, then nodded, half believing. Dusty's nervous whinny shattered the silence. Frank looked out. Torches bobbed on the horizon, at least 6 riders. Dutch Morgan's massive shadow led the pack. "They're here," Frank said under his breath. "Slip down to the root cellar. Hide." "No." Sarah clenched her hand around a kitchen knife. "Emma died telling the truth. If I die on my feet." Hope and fear writhed in Frank's chest. Dutch did not merely kill. He made examples. But the old rancher had already taken sides. Morgan's deep voice boomed through the yard. "Morrison, I'm here to make a reasonable offer." Frank covered at the window, rifle at the ready. Sarah crouched beside him, knuckles white on the knife. "I'm listening," Frank shouted. "The girl holds secrets that can damage my business," Dutch said, his tone surprisingly friendly. "Turn her over and I'll give you $100, enough to settle your debts and begin anew." $100, more than Frank had laid eyes on in 2 years. All he needed to do was give up one frightened child. "And if I say no?" Dutch's laughter, like ice. "Then I take her anyway, and people will blame Apaches, just what they blamed for Emma." Sarah winced but clamped her jaws hard. Frank's thoughts swirled, then settled. "Counteroffer, Dutch. You leave and I don't report those fake mining claims to the territorial marshal." Silence. Then Dutch's fury seethed through gritted teeth. "Boys, burn them out." Torches curved, crashing through the windows. Dry wood blazed at once. Smoke curled around the cabin. "Back door! Barn!" Frank shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand. They tore outside to find Dutch blocking their way, gun raised, smile as wide as a gash. "End of the line, Morrison. Should have taken the money." Instinct from cavalry days took over. Frank's Colt cleared leather. Dutch fired in the same heartbeat. Flashes split the night. Frank felt a burning punch in his shoulder as Dutch staggered, blood blooming on his vest. Both men toppled, but Morgan's gunmen closed in, encircling Frank and Sarah. Cobb knelt by his boss, frantic. "You're hit bad, Dutch." The outlaw spat blood, eyes fixed on Frank. "Still breathing. More than he'll be." Sarah fell alongside Frank, applying her hands to the wound. "Please, don't die. Don't leave me too." In her horror-filled face, Frank saw Lucy's, and the truth he had kept for 15 years struggled to the surface. "Sarah," he struggled, eyes fading. "There's something I never said to anyone." Frank's voice broke as he struggled to get the words out. "Your sister Emma. She wasn't the only girl Dutch kidnapped." Blood trickled through his shirt. Each syllable cost him. 15 years ago, Dutch stole my Lucy. She was 14, just your age." Sarah's hands stopped on the wound, eyes bulging. Your daughter?" "I was on a cattle drive," Frank breathed. "When I finally tracked down Dutch, Lucy was dead, worked to death in one of his brothels in the north." Even Dutch's shooters squirmed uncomfortably at the image of a father discovering his child's grave. Frank's breathing wheezed. "When I saw you in that saloon, saw your own father barter you for booze, it was like God's second chance, a second chance to be the father I ought to have been." Dutch pulled himself up, face pale but deadly. "Tender moment, Morrison. Too bad you both are going to join precious Lucy right soon." But something in Cobb's look had shifted. The giant man looked from Dutch to Sarah, then back at his injured boss. "Maybe we just take the papers and leave, Dutch. Let the old man alone." "Goin' soft, Cobb," Dutch growled. "Nah, boss, just thinking about my own little girl. She's around this one's age, knight balanced on a knife edge." Frank's eyes failed, but he clamped Sarah's hand. Resilience flashed in her gaze. "I won't let them get me," she muttered, speaking steadily. Distant thunder of hooves, dozens of them. Torches materialized on the ridge as Sheriff Tom Bradley and a 12-man posse rode into the yard. "Throw down your guns. This is the law," Bradley bellowed through the night. Surrounded, Dutch's men hesitated. Cobb was the first to let his revolver fall. "I surrender, Sheriff. I'm done with this." "You yellow-bellied coward," Dutch wheezed, clawing for his Colt. Frank, mustering the last of his strength, knocked the gun away. "It's over," he breathed. "Lucy can finally rest." Bradley swung down, looking at the burning cabin, Frank's bloody shirt, Sarah kneeling over him, shielding him. "Murphy sent word regarding the saloon," said the sheriff. "We rode hard." Sarah raised her eyes, tears gouging clean channels through ash and soot. "He saved me, Sheriff. Mr. Morrison saved me from them all." Bradley grunted. "We discovered Emma's body a week ago in a canyon to the north of town, hugging Dutch's counterfeit mining documents. Sufficient proof to hang him." Relief coursed through Frank, more weighty than his sore shoulder. "Emma was a brave one," he whispered, "just like Sarah." Deputies dragged Dutch to his feet and threw him over a horse. He spat blood, snarling at Frank. "This ain't finished. I've got friends." Frank did not hear. His whole universe had been reduced to the girl still pressing on his wound. "What becomes of me now?" Sarah asked softly as the posse were about to ride. The town doctor sewed Frank's shoulder as he replied, "Your father's rights ended the second he attempted to sell you. You might go to the territorial orphanage, or—" He looked at her. "Or remain here with a hard-headed old rancher who'll need assistance to rebuild. I can't guarantee it'll be simple, but I can guarantee you'll be safe and loved." A real smile, small, luminous, bloomed on Sarah's face. "I'd like that, Mr. Morrison. I'd like that very much." Dawn painted the sky rose gold over the charred shell of Frank's house. Side by side, he and Sarah salvaged what little the fire had spared. She wasn't Lucy, could never replace his daughter, but she was something just as precious. A second chance. Dutch Morgan went on trial within the month and dangled from the gallows at noon. His reign of terror fell apart, his name cursed and lost. Out in the cracked ground of Copper Ridge, Frank and Sarah rebuilt, fences first, then a small new home with big windows and a red front door. Laughter edged back into place of silence. Hope repaired what sorrow had destroyed. Redemption comes riding in unheralded sometimes, wearing a tattered gown, possessing more guts than twice her age of grown men, and reminding a shattered rancher that even in harsh, unforgiving country, justice and love can grow again.